Hi, everyone. Welcome to Divorcing Today with Jennifer and John. Today we have Steve Benmor, who is a fantastic family lawyer and who I think will be giving some amazing advice that I encourage you all to get a pencil and pen and tune in for.
Stephen, welcome. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, John.
So tell us about yourself.
So I have been practicing family law in Toronto since 1994. And after a couple years of working in a general litigation firm, they were sending me all of the family law work. They didn't want to do it. So I ended up doing it. And then when I opened up my own office a couple years later, it just seemed like that was the one area of law that was causing people to come and hire me. So after a couple of years of me attempting to have more of a varied practice, I ended up finding that the people that were hiring me were people that were going through separation and divorce. So it wasn't me choosing that, it was more the marketplace choosing me to be that type of lawyer. And then a couple of years later, I decided to make that my specialization. And then I effectively sent away any other kind of work that came in my door. And I focused just on family law. And then I took it one step further and I became certified by the Law Society as a specialist. And I'm one of about 50 specialists in family law in Toronto. And then I went one step further and I took a 2-year Master's in Law program at Osgoode Hall in family law. It was the first time it was offered by York University's Osgoode Hall Law School. And I graduated with a master's in law and family law, which I did while I was also running my law practice. On a personal level, I've got 3 kids. They're all adults. And I myself went through a divorce about 5 years ago. And it's very much informed me of the consequences emotionally, spiritually, legally, and financially of divorce. And it's most people who know me, both as clients and as family and friends, they say that my own personal life story has very much made me a much better lawyer and much more capable of helping people through their own separation and divorce.
I could definitely see that. And I know that a lot of my clients, I'm very confident referring to you because I not only love how empathetic you are and how amazing you are with the clients, but from my experience, I feel that you take on a lot of cases that are possibly more complicated than the average. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It's funny because when I did my undergraduate degree at University of Toronto, at the time, my mother and father's voices were in my ear to become a doctor. So I studied sciences and I have a very mathematical, logical, scientific mind. And so that is the part of my law career that speaks to what you just said, Jen, which is these very difficult cases. They're like, I don't know if anybody remembers Rubik's Cubes. You know, there were some people that knew how to do it. And then there were others that gave it 10 minutes and then threw it against the wall, right? So I'm the kind of guy that will not let go of the Rubik's Cube until I figure it out. And law cases, not just family law, all types of law cases, there are different degrees of complexity. And I happen to become known, I guess, as the lawyer that will take on those more difficult cases. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of lawyers who actually do family law work, but when it reaches a certain point, or it's a particular level of complexity, they pass it over to me. And so I've ended up inheriting a lot of very difficult cases, and I refuse to not leave it unsolved. I have to solve it. I'm kind of like the dog on the pant leg that won't let go. I got to figure it out because there's got to be a solution to this. And that's the nature of my philosophy with respect to difficult cases, because difficult cases could be made up of difficult people, difficult facts, or difficult law. Sometimes it's all three, and I like it. It's a challenge to me, and I try to toil through it to kind of get it solved.
Well, that's also a good reputation to have, right? It's like you're passionate, you're very knowledgeable, and very calm demeanor, and you just know your stuff, right? Like that's very impressive. right? Good reputation to have. You know, very complicated. Go to Stephen Benmor, right? Like that's pretty incredible.
And I'll also add to that, sorry to interrupt, but from my personal experience, anytime there has been anyone who was interested in speaking to Steve for any type of advice, he was so gracious and generous with his time. And I think that should be known, because not so people can call and take advantage of you, but so that people can understand that you are very caring to each individual situation. And I think that's unique and wonderful.
Yeah, you know, let me touch on that just for a second. You know, lawyers generally all over the world have a reputation of being dogmatic, difficult, argumentative. But a lot of people don't know this. Lawyers generally are very charitable. They're very philanthropic. In fact, most boards of directors, boards of governors have a lot of lawyers on the boards. A lot of lawyers go into politics. Politics generally doesn't pay as much as a legal career, particularly for those people that are very successful lawyers. Lawyers, generally speaking, are very charitable. And just on a personal level, I actually love education. And so when young lawyers call me and ask me for advice, and it happens all the time, those are actually very much calls that I enjoy receiving, because it gives me an opportunity to help the next generation of lawyers learn the right skills to be able to help the next generation of people going through separation and divorce. And I use the word right skills because, you know, not a lot of lawyers have those right skills.
Well, are you trying to tell us that you're going to be a professor one day, or are you going to run for prime minister?
Neither, but I get to do both of those things. I get to be a professor and a prime minister for one person at a time, where I get to educate them, whether the person is a young lawyer, a junior lawyer, a client, a group of people. I mean, for many years, I taught at Seneca College for many years to the paralegal and law clerks who were entering into the profession. And then I also taught at Osgoode Hall Law School to young lawyers. And today, after I finished with you, I am a speaker for the Advocate Society, which is a lawyer organization to educate young lawyers on how to practice law. And I'm a speaker today, and my topic later on today is going to be on how to prepare for examinations in chief. So I actually get to do what Justin Trudeau and Alan Dershowitz do with much greater accolades than I will ever receive. But I get the benefit that they equally get from doing the work that they do.
Well, it's amazing, right? You're giving back.
Yeah. So can you just tell us, maybe for our listeners, what a piece of advice would be if they're starting out and they don't know about the separation process, what to do? What would a good piece of advice you would give them be?
It's the same advice that my father gave me, may he rest in peace, 25 years ago when he was still with us. And that was, when you have a problem, identify the people that are within reach, that have the expertise that you do not have to solve the problem, and make them your advisory board for your problems. And when it comes to something like separation and divorce, by the way, that's my junior associate back there. He tends to be barky when she doesn't get it, when judges don't accept her argument. The people that are in our community, and today, by the way, with COVID, our community has no borders and no boundaries because we could reach out to anybody. The people that are within our reach that have the expertise to help us with the problem are the people that we should immediately put in our solar system. We should be in the middle of it, us, that is the client, and then the people surrounding them are the people that will help them with various aspects of their problem. So for the separation and divorce clients, that might mean a lawyer, a coach, a mediator, a mortgage broker, a real estate agent, a therapist. Now, I'm not suggesting that the client will need all of them every day for 1 hour, but if that advisory board is assembled at the beginning, at any moment in time, different people in the constellation will be able to work together and help the person. So in my case, there will be moments when I will say to my client, I'd like a phone call with John to discuss your options on the mortgage, because we're going to be going to a mediation, and I need to know what are the numbers that will allow you to buy out the house and whether it's even feasible. And in fact, will we need your wife or your husband to co-sign on the mortgage as a guarantor, or can we actually get financing without? So I need to speak not to you, client, but to your mortgage broker. Or I might want to speak to the therapist to figure out how can we actually learn the right skills to manage very high conflict moments with your ex surrounding, for example, I don't know, a drive to camp today to visit the kids on Visitors Day. So there are going to be people in this constellation that will have something to say at different moments through the divorce journey. And if you assemble that board and they're quality people and the different supports are able to communicate with one another and with the client, that is, in my mind, the most valuable tip that someone can get in going through their own separation and divorce.
That's pretty incredible.
That's great advice.
Yeah, I like it. And so, and what are some of the biggest, mistakes that you see people make with separation and divorce?
Separation and divorce is part of one's personal life journey. And all of us, John, Jen, and I, as humans, we make mistakes. We've always made mistakes, and we will forever make mistakes. So, John, it's a very good question about what are some of the more common mistakes. Well, when it comes to separation and divorce, the client, the person going through the divorce, has a lot of different things going on. Let's start with the fact that they're probably still running a household, responsible for children. They're also responsible to their partner, even though they're going through a separation divorce. They probably have responsibilities to their parents or their siblings. They have responsibilities at work. They have all these responsibilities, and somehow the responsibility of knowing what to say and what to do through a divorce falls on top of that very large list of other responsibilities. And oftentimes, the decisions that are made are not well thought out because it's emotional, it's personal, and nobody is raised with the right divorce wisdom. So it's not something that we go, oh, I know what to do in that situation. When my ex says this, when my lawyer says that, when the mediator says this, nobody is born with that knowledge base. And so the mistakes they make, that I see they make, is making snap decisions, making decisions to press send on an email without having thought through what they're saying. And to be more practical, some mistakes that I've seen people make is when they, early stages, when they split up, they say to their ex, you know what, I'm moving out, or you can have the kids live with you, or I'll buy the house from you, or I'll pay you X dollars a month, or I'll take the house, you take the cottage. They make these snap statements that are very hard to undo later. And then they go and they speak to a mortgage broker or a divorce coach or a lawyer or a mediator, and they find out that, you know what they were thinking of doing wasn't particularly smart. But now you can't take the cream out of the coffee because the other person heard it. They then told it to their family, their friends, their lawyer. And now that becomes what we call anchoring. And it's very hard to unanchor an anchor. And so what I say is what criminal lawyers tell their clients when they are first charged with a crime: don't say anything to anybody. Stay silent until you figure out what your rights are, what your remedies are, what your objectives are.
Good piece of advice. I like it.
That's great. And I love the analogy of the cream in the coffee. I'm going to use that one now.
Me too.
So what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that if somebody is going to be starting the separation process, it would probably be in their best interest to contact someone who is going to give them an idea of their rights. So perhaps they should be contacting a lawyer primarily. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if the question is what is my legal right to blank, the answer is answerable by a lawyer. But there are other people, not the least of which are the two of you, that have heard the answer to that particular question so many times before that you would likely say to your client, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not giving you legal advice, but I have heard that question asked and answered by a lawyer, and this is what I have heard the answer to be. Mm-hmm. As for whether that is applicable to you, that's a question that you're going to have to ask your lawyer. But that is a perfect example of when, for example, John is giving advice to somebody on the refinancing of their house in order to purchase out their spouse, and questions will arise. For example, well, what happens if my spouse buys a house in the same year that I buy this house from my spouse? And that might be a question about, can we have two principal residences in 1 year and not pay tax on the growth on the value of two homes? Well, that's a legal question, but I'm pretty sure John knows the answer to that question because his clients have asked and had those questions answered while John's been involved in the case. Likewise with you, Jen, there's going to be questions that clients will ask me with respect to the rights of custody, access, and parenting to children that I know you know the answers to. And so that's a question, although it's legal in nature, you know the answers and you can share with your client the kind of answers that you've heard being given. But make no mistake, it's not to try to discredit or disqualify the value of lawyers. Lawyers do have value, but when it comes to separation and divorce, as I said to you a minute ago, there's a constellation of advisors, and many of us know what advice the rest of the constellation have given to people in the same situation.
Oh, very good. I like it. It's good advice, right? It's very, very sound, and it comes from a good place. So if someone wanted to contact you, how can someone reach you?
I'm not sure if my name is on the screen, but if it isn't, I'm Steve Benmor. The last name is spelled Benmor, and my website is very simple. It's www.benmor.com. And if you come to the site, you get to see articles that I've written. My CV is there, which is really good because it actually shows some of the work that I've done in the community, a lot of the educational work that I have done educating other lawyers. And it also provides a list of the cases. As another way, actually, clients can learn a lot about lawyers is actually to see their work, their past work. And there's a website called canley.org, which is www.canlii.org. And you can click Ontario and you can click the name of a lawyer and you can see all of the work that lawyer has done for other clients. It's actually reported judicial decisions. And if you were to if you were to go to Canley and keyword search the word Benmor, you'll see a list of the cases that I've handled there.
Wow, that's great. It's a great resource for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I learned something. I'm going to check that out, actually.
Well, Steve, it's always a pleasure talking to you. And thank you so much for taking your time to come and explain to our viewers some things that they will definitely find informative and educational.
My pleasure.
And we'll speak to you really soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show. Wow.
Steve's fantastic.
Yeah, you know what? I'm a fan. I like the way he speaks. It comes from a good place. I think he gives really good advice and those tips. Like, hey, figure out what you want to do before you say something. Know your rights. He also says, get the professionals that can help you that are within like an arm's reach. Right. So I think that's really good advice.
It was fantastic. I mean, why wouldn't you have all of your people set up already so that when you do need them, you're not going to be struggling to find somebody. You have everyone already set in place. So if you do need the advice of a financial professional or someone, they're right there for you, and you don't have to have that extra added stress trying to search now for someone.
Wait, Jennifer, this is what this show does also. It introduces people to really good professionals that are now within an arm's reach.
Wow. Why didn't I think of that, John?
I don't know. I don't know. Well, we hope that you enjoyed Steve Benmor. And if you'd like to reach out to him, his contact information is here for you. Really great guy. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. Divorcing Today, Now What with John and Jennifer.